Okay, sige po. Let's, yung mga inipon po nating questions, pwede na po nating tanungin. Sige po. Nakalimutan na. Nakalimutan na yung inipon yung questions. Sige po, sir, si Director Conrado Dagdag from the Senate.
Hi, good afternoon, Director Villarente, and the staff of the HASTI. I recall several few years back, this is a question about PKI. There was this effort together with the, I think, country of Korea. What's the status of this project?
PKI project started 2008, just before the ARM election. We inaugurated that facility in November last year, so it's running here. But when we evaluated how, well, to be honest, how easy it is to integrate your application to make use of that, we decided, because we also looked at alternative platforms, so we decided it was much easier if we set up a separate PKI platform. So it's running here. Our plan for the PKI now is, okay, we will continue to run that because BIR integrated their taxpayer ba? BIR has one application that they integrated with that. We feel it's much easier to just invest on a separate platform for various reasons. One being, the root CA of that Korean platform is limited right now to 2048 ba? Or 1024 bits. And that will not be, well, we will need to upgrade that eventually within 5 years. So it's much easier to just start with what we really need right now, rather than continue with that and then in 5 years time we will have to migrate eventually. So the plan is to bid out the system, and it is scheduled, if things proceed, we will have the facility September. Now, while we are conducting the procurement, we actually have two platforms running now. So we can actually issue digital certificates to those which want to, not the Korean platform, because we can support you, and we hope those the vendors of those two platforms will join the bidding. In any case, it's a standards-based platform, so whoever wins, we will hopefully be assured that it will be much easier to implement the integration with your applications. No? So that's the reason why we are taking that route in terms of deploying a PKI service. So one, because of the technology, so yung key length. And two, because it will be much easier to support integration of PKI into your applications. It will be a web service, or it's an OCSP call. I believe that's the term, no? I'm not sure if it was also discussed. We're thinking that we will issue the certificates for free to users. What we want to encourage is develop the critical mass immediately. So it doesn't make sense to enable an application and you're looking for who will use it. What we want to do is immediately issue a lot of the certificates so that we encourage you as service providers, you providing the online services, to adopt PKI because you have the user base. So rather than trying to encourage you, and then you have to think, does this make sense? Is it worth my time to invest on this? Where is my user base? We want immediately to have citizens have a digital certificate, and that will hopefully encourage you to use the system, to secure your system, enable digital signing, transferring encrypted files, etc. We will charge, ang inisip namin, we will charge per transaction, but it will be a very minimal cost. Hopefully can be absorbed.
Sige po. Any more questions po?
Good afternoon po. I'm Peter from Philippine Postal. Regarding do sa PKI, meron kaming pinag-aaralan. Actually, ginagamit ito sa ibang bansa. Yung kinuha kasi sa amin ng mga mails ng IT, which is yung ibang mails namin is napunta na sa email. We're planning to have sino gumagamit sa inyo ng registered mail? O yung ating snail mail, registered mail. So, ang plano namin is to have the registered mail as an e-registered mail. So, yung pag deliver namin sa inyo yung via email, isa-certify siya kung sino mang certifying authority na magagamit namin. Then, madi-deliver yung mails nyo as a registered mail. So, kung pwede, makikipag-collaborate kami sa inyo kung paano namin maibibigay yung bagong services na yun sa atin.
As I mentioned, yung procurement ng PKI will be done, so we hope na within the year the service will be up. And part of the implementation of that is to finalize the CP and CPS, yung certification practice statement, certificate practice statement, and the certificate policy for the CA, for the certification authority. So we have time to think about the mechanism of issuance and so on. The other, we need to make it easy for our citizens to be issued a digital certificate. Doon nga yung iniisip namin i-integrate ito or i-base ito on the UMID ID. Because the UMID, yung procedure policy, we think already ensures that the physical person and the physical ID is issued to the. I mean, there's security in the process of issuing the physical ID with the physical person. So parang if you have a UMID ID and you want a digital certificate, you present yourself with your with your UMID ID, GSIS, SSS, PhilHealth, or Pag-ibig, if they start issuing it. So we validate your credentials against the information contained in the card, and we validate that against the CVS, yung Central Verification System. You should also provide your physical address, which is in the UMID card anyway. All right. And a valid email address. So parang yung issuance, once we validate you, we can ask you to come back so that we can issue the physical media, or we can email you your credentials, but then you have to open it using a PIN which we mail physically to your address. So parang yung proseso ng bank na when you open an account with them, you go back, get the ATM card, or they mail you the ATM card with the activation PIN. I believe that is that right? In this case, since there's a the digital certificate is a file that can be emailed, but then to be able to use it the first time, you need an activation PIN, something like that. Okay, yeah. So it's something like that. So parang para ma-simplify yung issuance and maybe also the renewal later on. Parang ganon. So I was just thinking na yung for purposes of an registered mail, in fact, magagamit siguro because you will need a valid email address and physical address as well, which we have to link with your name and yung identity mo.
Any more questions po from? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Director Villorente and the pool of our resource persons. I'm Luz V. Chato from the Commission on Audit. If there is a collaboration between NCC for the use of the e-Bayad payment gateway on the implementation of the Philippine National Single Window that is supposed to be implemented by 40 government agencies for trade facilitation and the issuance of permits and other certifications. Because the idea is the public or the importers would be able to pay their the fees for permits and licenses for trade facilitation using the electronic payment system, and it looks like the e-Bayad payment gateway would be a good part or component of the PNSW project.
Thank you for the question, ma'am. According to Ms. Grace Amberong, wala pa pong discussion with the National Single Window. Although I also understand there are issues about yung I'm not sure if this is connected, no. There's an E2M system kasi being used by customs in the National Single Window, and I think there are pending issues on yung moving forward with these two systems. I believe so. Yung E2M, at least, that's Bureau of Customs. Yung National Single Window, I think they're the lead, but there are, as you mentioned, 40 government agencies, which are all permit issuing agencies of government. If you're involved in any permits that are necessary for either importation or exportation, then you should be part of the National Single Window, I believe.
Kasi in addition to what was Ms. Ko said, We are part of the National Single Window as a Sugar Regulatory Administration. We are processing licenses, traders, importation and exportation. So we are on the process of revising our website, and we are including the online application. Our problem now is if we are going to integrate the online payment. That's what our problem is.
Thank you. Okay, as presented earlier, how can agency make use of iBayad is una is for us to have the business requirement of the MOU, no? Actually, yung connection sa iBayad is free. So there's no charge to the agency to connect to iBayad. So ang kailangan lang natin magkaroon tayo ng MOU to formalize yung arrangement, no? Kanino yung responsibility na to, ano yung role mo, ano yung responsibility, gano'n, no? And then, for the application to be integrated with iBayad, we will be providing you with Shopee, yung Secured Institution Application Program Interface. So yan po ay dapat ilagay, technical requirement na po to. Ilalagay po natin dun sa inyong online page kung saan matatapos yung processing. So, madidetermine kung magkano yung babayaran. And then that Shopee will now forward the details, the payment details doon sa iBayad. So, yun yung pong connection na dapat i-gawin, no? So, yun po yung kailangan na ano. It's a web service wherein we capture yung data from your online application to the iBayad and then vice versa.
Yes, good afternoon. Jason po from UP Diliman. Make follow-up question lang for iBayad. So, may transaction charge ba to for clients na mag-a-avail ng service na ganun?
Okay, regarding the transaction, siyempre yung ating mga stakeholders like GCash and BankNet, sila po may charge. iBayad itself, wala transaction. So just like in any ATM transaction, you pay 10 pesos for passing through the ATM switch. So meron pong 10 pesos na sinisingil ang BankNet. So sa kanila po yon. But the iBayad does not get any fee. And then yung basic fee naman goes to the agency. For GCash, ganun din, meron din silang business requirement. It's 1% per based on the amount of the basic fee. Kung let's say 1,000, so that's about 10 pesos. So more than 10,000, more than 1,000, more than 10 pesos. Ganun po.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nakalimutan ko pala magpasalamat kay Dennis sa kay Bunny for helping us during the impeachment doon sa video streaming. Thank you for your assistance. Anyway, my second question is tungkol doon sa pinresent kanina na mga optic fiber layout ang na-notice ko lang parang naka-focus tayo sa Metro Manila if you're looking for iGov PIL ang tanong ko basically is anong strategy natin to reach out to other kasi dito sa Metro Manila punong-puno na tayo ng mga telecom carriers. So mga outside areas to reach out to the entire archipelago to make it truly iGov PIL, anong strategy natin doon?
Well, it's true there are all the telcos are in Metro Manila. What we want to address is kasi parang ngayon chicken and egg since the government agency is the one paying for the connection, there's a disincentive to keep on putting applications on that pipe kasi it's coming out of your budget. But what we want to do is encourage government agencies to put your applications online because that will ultimately benefit the public. That's what we want to do. And when we can actually implement a combination of using existing government assets in Metro Manila, leasing capacity or fiber from telcos and so on. But that is why we are focusing on Metro Manila first. It's because most national government agencies are here in Metro Manila, and what we want is to get your services on the internet. So the internet is the delivery mechanism that we have right now. But if it's also the mechanism for us to start sharing data to enable our applications. For example, we will be delivering, as I mentioned, shared services, the PKI, email, the payment gateway, and so on. If we do this over the commodity internet, we start encountering issues like who will provide the capacity to get to us, and so on. So we want to address that so that that is there, and it's a matter of us using the capacity, because with the fiber in place, we can actually scale up very quickly. Right now, many of you are using maybe 2, 4, 10 Mbps connectivity. We're looking at capacities of 100 Mbps or 1 gig going to your building. Government agency, we know you have a lot of data to offer. So get that aside. And we think that that capacity will be useful because that will also encourage you to start thinking of using video conferencing and so on. Di ba po? Kasi ngayon, why would we do video conferencing? Kailan ba natin ginagamit yan? Etc. But it will require so much capacity, which we have to subscribe to right now. So, get that aside with this infrastructure. All right. Now, addressing the question of what is the plan to reach the public, okay, the internet is there right now. Okay. We have many strategies. One strategy is because we will be able to have this in Metro Manila and many of the applications will be lodged here, it will actually encourage telcos to connect to us because it will be their clients that are subscribing to their service who will want to get good connectivity to your applications, right? So it's the burden of connecting from eating up your budget is to their subscribers. All online government applications, the commercial ISPs. Hopefully, internet ecosystem here. Yung applications for the public, as I mentioned, baka gaming, social media, we should be encouraging e-government and so on. So this is one way we can do help develop the ecosystem. It will help everyone, government, even the telcos should be welcoming this development and should not be looking at this as a competition to them because it's a chicken and egg. Nag-iintayan tayo. Right now, they have the facility but we think it's too expensive maybe. So, paunti-unti. So, that also takes a lot of effort and time for us to start providing our services online. But we know that that is what we need to be competitive, di ba po? So, get that aside. Now, the second, so that's one strategy to get to be able to reach the public. The other strategy is we're looking at all of the government communications infrastructure that is in place. Engineer Odile mentioned that TELOF actually has a microwave network in the Visayas and Mindanao. There are other facilities that we know of. We are looking at those as well, but that is not yet in this project, but that is a potential direction that we can take for a phase 2 of iGov field to get to government agencies outside Metro Manila, for instance, even to connect to public schools, both high school and elementary, and so on. So, yun po. Yun po yung strategy. Kaya we're focusing on Metro Manila because the application will drive the infrastructure. We don't want the infrastructure just for the sake of having an infrastructure. We want that being used. And we think that will be coming from government, which is mainly, again, the data is in Metro Manila. Now, many of you may have your own networks, in fact, connecting to your regional offices. So if we are able to connect your head office, then we can already make use of what you have budgeted already to connect to your regional offices and so on.
Just to add to that, let me use as an example the connection between ASTI and NCC. Before the fiber was laid out going into NCC, they had I think a 4 Mbps or 6 Mbps internet connection. So basically, the network link between ASTI and NCC is around 6 meg. When we put the fiber in, it widened up to 1 gig. So if you get that from a telco, a 1 gig link between ASTI to NCC will be very expensive. So to go back to your example, sir, actually there are a lot of telco infrastructure inside Metro Manila, but it's very expensive to procure per Mbps speed from them. Now, to extend that example further, how were we able to lay out that fiber with UP Diliman's help? So why is that important? What UP Diliman has is right of way. He has a large chunk of land inside Quezon City wherein we can lay fiber. That will be useful to connect, for example, here, ASTI, hindi na sila naningil dun sa right of way. Pinalatag na lang nila yung fiber. So, paano magiging useful yon? Let's take as an example the Department of Agriculture, NBN4 and DNR. Magkakatabi sila sa Visayas Avenue. It will be very inefficient to lay 3 sets of fiber cable from those 3 main government offices going back here sa NCC. Ideally, meron na lang isang node. Doon na lang mag-connect yung mga kapitbahay niya. So, yung i-treat nyo yung land nyo as right of way na pwede kayong magpadaan ng ibang government agencies na kapitbahay nyo. Nagkataon lang na naka-highlight dito ang LRT at ang MMDA kasi napakalaki ng right of way infrastructure nila. Lahat tayo halos makikidaan sa kanila. Pero yung sa magkakapitbahay sa inyo, magdadaanan kayo sa isa't isa. Why do I emphasize that? Kasi may ibang comments na paano yung financial model nito? Pwede bang magsingilan sa isa't isa? So actually, pag nagsingilan tayo sa isa't isa, magiging mahirap ilatag yung fiber. So kung i-take nyo yung example ng ASTI to NCC na hindi na naningil si UP Diliman, we were able to get a 1 gig connection. Then, actually madalas na question sa amin yung which we're upgrading to 10 gig. Actually 1 gig lang siya kasi 1 gig yung meron kaming port ngayon. Pag dumating na yung 10 gig ports, papalitan po namin yan. Fiber is limitless. You just change the ports, tataas yung speed. Then, madalas na nakukuha namin question about the node. Magkakapit bahay kami sa isang cluster. Gusto ko ako ang node. Bakit nila gusto maging node? Actually, kung sino yung node, malaki ang capacity sa kanya. Kasi kayo ang pasukan ng fiber. Ngayon, ano ang parang responsibilities ko for being a node? Well, hopefully uptime. Kailangan may kuryente lagi. So ideally, meron kayong magandang UPS, meron kayong maliit na computer room, at sana may genset kayo. Ngayon, ang madalas namin nakukuha ang question, gusto ko maging node, wala akong genset, ipoprovide ba yun ng project? Hindi po na. Since setting up pa, malaki yung funds na inubos ng pag-setup. Ibig sabihin yung generator, hindi mapoprovide as of now. Ibig sabihin, if you want to be a node, sana ready na kayo with the uptime. Generator, UPS. Tapos syempre yung node, eventually maaabala yan every now and then. Na-down yung switch, tatawagan ka sa gabi, pwede bang pumunta doon, etc. Pero yun, take into account na pag node kayo, malaki ang bandwidth capacity papasok sa inyo.
I'm Stella Josef from Social Security System. My question is, what is the timeline for the implementation of the 7 components of the iGov? Do you have a timeline for each? Or is it all to be implemented in 1 year?
this will be going through public bidding. So we're bidding components out through PITC, Philippine International Trading Corporation. So yung email, PKI, yung computing hardware, storage, ano pa ba?
Fiber network, sir.
Network equipment will be bidded out. We've issued the terms of references, so PITC is preparing the bidding. Hopefully, that gets awarded on the first try and 60 days to implement. So by September, yun yung parang optimistic. September this year. Yung PKI, it's a matter of procuring it kasi we've already implemented the system on a test environment. In fact, we can issue certificates already. Yung email, it's a matter of scaling that up. So that's the reason why we opted to go with supported platform. Well, hopefully, kasi nga public bidding, hopefully it wins. But we cannot actually restrict who wants to offer, ano. Yung fiber is the question mark. Kasi we've not yet finalized the terms of reference for that. And in fact, we're still in discussion with LRTA, MMDA on a memorandum of agreement to allow us right of way over their underground ducts. LRTA to hopefully they allow us to use their spare fiber because that will hasten things. So LRTA right now they have spare fiber on LRT1 and LRT2 because they use this for their signaling and so on. So it's the fiber is there and they have spare cores, and we'll buy the network equipment to light them up, and so we can already link agencies that are to their stations, no. So iba-iba po yung timeline. So I think yung fiber yung medyo hindi pa kami sure about how long that will take. We may opt to do it like in pilot, parang between 1 point to 1 point. Like we are actually starting the pilot of the national payroll system this July for at least 2 or 3 agencies and hopefully 6 agencies by August. Tama po ba, ma'am? August. So that will require an infrastructure like this one. So that has to be really reliable, and you need eventually within 2 years, if everything goes according to plan, lahat ng agencies will be using that. It will be hosted. It's a anong tawag mo doon? Hosted application. So all of the agencies will need to have access to that on a regular basis, because if you're generating your payroll every week or twice a month, then you have to access that application regularly, ano. So it makes sense to have that kind of infrastructure. So kaya sinasabi kong pilot, because if we'll use that for the NPS, then we'll need to connect this site with maybe DBM and Treasury and COA. So it's like the whole of medyo Metro Manila na yon will just spread out from there. Parang ganon. Yeah. Actually, we want to move with the Quezon Memorial Circle. Kasi 28 agencies ba yan, Wally? Yeah, 28 government agencies in a very small area. This area. Na magkakatabi. Diba? So, it really makes sense to lay out fiber here. Doesn't really cost much and it's really scalable. Pwede po, oo. Pwede po, oo. Yeah. Wala pa po yata. Oo. Parang it's yun nga pa rin pala po, we can actually go with the telco solution, ano. Pero if you look at that, kasi ngayon yung technology for providing data networking, you can buy equipment at very low cost. Yung telcos kasi, they need to invest on equipment which is catered to all types of usage. Voice, video, data. We only want to do data. And there are equipment which really cost very cheap if that is the only thing that we want to do. But if we are able to implement that, then you can have video, voice over IP, and data. So, yun po.
Any other questions?
Sir, magdadagdag lang po ko, no? This is about yung data center natin. I'm very trusted with NCC and ASTI. But in terms of, kasi we are putting the data center in NCC and in Cebu. And I do believe in the past few years ago, I'm talking about the risk management, that the building per se experienced the flood and Cebu experienced the earthquake. Do you have a plan of also expanding it to another more data center? Cloud naman tayo. So I'm just saying it and airing it kasi I already know those kind of, we need to face the risk. So that's why I'm talking na meron po ba tayo pang isa pa na ipuput up, or do you still have the plan? Kasama po ba siya sa phase 1 or kaming mga matatamaan in case? Ano yung natin?
Separate from iGov, there is actually an ongoing government data center study with assistance from Korea, as well as e-government master plan formulation. It's actually updating of the GISP. So we actually sent out survey questionnaires, no, to many of you. We hope you responded or will. If you haven't, please respond para pumasok yung data na yon dun sa study. But so that addresses yung will this suffice? What is the parang future demand? So hopefully that study answers that. But specifically for the iGov project, we know that this is something that government agencies are subscribing to and are looking for. Why NCC? Because we have 300 square meters of space here in this building that was used to house the mainframe before. That's been obsoleted. That's in the museum, I believe. But the space is there, and we have certain equipment that we can leverage on. So it's a matter of adding on to what we have to make it a tier 3 facility. It's the same with Telof. The building is there. It's a national toll center. It's actually parang the center of the Telof network for the Visayas, I believe. So there's a building there that is used for that purpose. They have space available, so it's a little bit underutilized now because I guess nobody is subscribing to Telof voice service anymore. So they offer the space to be used for a government data center. So it's a matter of adding on to what they have because they already have the space, they already have the generator there, etc. So we add on again. So it's something that we can do quickly with a little bit of investment that will be of benefit to the whole government. But at the same time, we're looking at a formal study for a government data center to understand what is actually the need, and if there is more capacity needed, then we can understand that and try to address that.
May question po. Nana. Okay. Ay, yes ma'am.
I'm Gwen from SSS. Oo. For all the 7 programs, I did not see anything about training the citizenry on IT. No, kasi yung experience po namin sa SSS, we have this web application na ilang taon na siya. And considering that private sector yung clients namin, parang mababa yung take-up. Siguro ang employers about 10% lang is doing transaction to that facility. Di namin alam kung anong tumbling na yung gagawin namin. And then, yung mga members mismo, medyo konti lang din, lalo na sa probinsya. No? Kahit na may MOA kami with yung mga Netopia, mga ganyan, na they can go there and this Netopia will assist. Parang hindi, natatakot pa rin sila to use the computers. And there is this notion na parang gusto ko talagang may papel. Yung ganon. So I did not see that in the plans for the next year.
Yung training component po under iGov is really focused on training partners to use the shared services. So kayo po yon. How do you enable your application? How do you PKI enable your application? How do you use the payment gateway? And so on. Yung for the public po, because there are other programs, both of your agencies as well as of ICTO, addressing computer literacy. And so in fact, we have a Philippine Community Center program to address access to the internet for those that do not have their own computers, for instance. Or we just this morning launched the APEC Digital Opportunity Center, where we have a mobile computer lab to offer basic computer literacy to underprivileged out-of-school youth, for instance. Yung mga ganon. We have a National Computer Institute here, which is addressing training for government personnel. So meron po mga regular programs for those. Yung specific na for how do you use an online application of government, I think that should be addressed by whoever is offering that application. So in the case of iGov, we will focus on how can you use the shared services that will be offered. Now, there are other shared services that we can potentially offer. For instance, online forms management, processing. Lahat po tayo may forms, hindi po ba? We might want to think of a single platform to offer online forms. What else? Yung interaction with the public through mobile phones. Yung 27 something, basta may yung mga, di ba, you subscribe to that. Why can't government offer one number that we all use, and then that goes to, parang yung call center ng bayan yata na concept ito parang ganon. Na it's a shared service for public notification or public feedback to be able to provide that through GSM, for instance.
Yung tungkol po sa SMS, kasi lahat yata ng tao may text. And yet we cannot provide parang service masyado kasi because of security. We are not sure that the person sending the text message or the person we are sending the text message is really the person. So meron ho kayang initiatives para naman magamit natin yung texting sa government transaction. Yung, maybe if we can implement
I'm not sure, but maybe we can link that with the PKI kasi yung if they register their cellular number, then we know it's whoever that person is really the one who registered it, I guess. So we have a way to link with the person.
ang kailangan kukuhanin pa namin talaga yung cellphone
Yes.
number ng tao.
Oo.
So kung kailangan mo ng bilisan agad 1 million, ganyan-ganyan, hindi nagagawa. Kasi wala kang cellphone number niya.
Baka may ibang issues kasi like privacy concerns. I don't believe the cellular phone number is among items identified as shareable under UMID. Hindi yata. So it's something that the citizen has to opt in, ano.
Yung
But
sa ibang
if-
countries kasi wala, parang may registration pag kumuha ka ng prepaid numbers ganon, may registration, so they can use that for.
Just to add po pala, yung iGov project will not be providing routers. If you have an internet connection right now, it is assumed that you have a router. Tapos, since fiber yung nakwento, baka sabihin ng iba, wala silang fiber port, we'll be handing over the connection via your cheap RJ45 UTP cable. I-media convert po namin para RJ45 ang pasok sa inyo.
Any more questions po?
Excuse me.
Isa pa, nabanggit kanina yung tungkol sa records, for archiving and retrieval. Paano yun? Pag nag-avail tayo ng ganun, pwede yung server co-located doon sa inyo? Or paano setup?
Mas po sana yung collocation yung idea namin, but if you have a good data center, ang po-provide po namin sa inyo will be the system that you can install in your, if that's the option you want to take. Pwede pong ganun. But of course, mas maganda sana kung nandun na sa i-collocate nyo na yung server nyo dun para dun sa magamit din yung data center. Okay? But ang gagawin po namin ngayon is gagawa muna kami prototype. Hopefully within the year maumpisahan na gamitin na ng NAP. So probably first quarter of next year we will na lang kung sa mga ibang agencies kung sino pa yung gustong mag-avail ng system. Ang lang po namin is it will be open source, so most likely it will be running under Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP platform.
Si Sir Peter ata.
Excuse me pa. Ngayon po kasi nag-i-inventaryo kami ng mga assets namin, pati yung mga infrastructure, pati yung mga offices and everything. Baka mabigyan kami ng kopya ng requirements doon sa para maging node siya or anong mga requirements like space, bukod sa na-mention kanina. So baka mabigay sa kompleto. Ang concentration po kasi namin ngayon sa probinsya. Yung sa Metro Manila may inventory na kami. Yung sa probinsya po ang inaayos namin.
Yes, ma'am.
Cora Mercado po from DILG. Nag-worry lang po ako kasi narinig ko kanina na if you are only renting a building, hindi kami connected. Ganun ba yun? No? Oh my God. Oh, please. Ang laki kasi na office namin kung hindi naman kami connected Kawawa naman yung DILG. Thank you. Kami pa yung wala.
Okay, stand corrected. Yung pag-host po ng node. Opo.
Sige po. Any more concerns po? Ay, sige.
Siguro try ko pong sagutin kahit papaano yung sa Node para lang may idea po kayo. Yung gusto naming i-host doon is a typical 1 RU or 2 RU na fiber optic switch. Ang switch typically kinakabit, so sana meron na kayong rack or 2 post na lalagyan ng equipment. So mga ganito lang po siya kataba. Typical network switch. Mga ganyan po kahaba. Standard naman po yon. So ideally, meron po kayong rack na pwedeng paglagyan. Meron pang siguro mga 1/3 na space para yung pasukan pa ng kable. After that, ideally enclose siya sa isang kwarto. Hindi naman po kailangan mala data center na kwarto, basta computer room na merong hopefully may aircon na 24/7. Opo. So, I'm sure karamihan sa inyo meron na pong ganitong kwarto eh. On top of that, ideally meron siyang cable tray papalabas. Minsan yung cable tray ng government agencies magaganda, bakal. Madalas best effort na nakasampay lang kung saan-saan. Ideally may cable tray kayo papalabas. Yun po hindi rin namin mapopondohan, sana meron na yon. Then after that, dun po tayo sa kuryente. Sana may reliable na kuryente sa inyo. Yung network switch, napakaliit ng kain niya ng kuryente. So kung meron kayong malaking UPS, kaya na po dapat i-sustain yon for ilang hours. Mas maganda kung may genset kayo, pero sana may UPS po. Then last, willing kayong maabala, at least yung tech guy nyo, willing maabala every now and then. Siguro habang nagpapasok ng bagong fiber, yon, maaabala siyang samahan yung maglalatag, sabihin saan pupunta, etc. Then, every now and then, hopefully hindi naman madalas, remote hands, meaning matatawagan, pakitanggal naman po yung power ng switch, pakibalik ulit. Kasi nilalaro nung technical na down, parang gano'n.
Sir, may tanong lang po ako about sa amin po, sa Bureau of Immigration po. Ang Bureau po kasi, each province po, may kanya-kanya siyang subport tsaka seaport po. If you're saying na in sa main lang siya makakonect sa fiber, how about kapag kumanik sa amin yung subport tsaka seaport namin tsaka yung airport po namin? Madami po siya. I think maglalaro po sa mga 80. Then we're going to put boundary and borders today. I think this coming July, magtatayo kami ng 6 end borders. The last province is, I think, is Batuganding. So how we going, if they're going to connect to us, how they're going to be affects in our system, in our network? And if other one po is you're using a Unix, so it means it's using on a hypervisor. Can we, is there anyone from your team will teach us how to use Unix? Because I think Unix is so confidential OS. So I think, is there any effect to us or kailan po ba namin malaman yung Unix pag in-install sa amin?
Training on Unix, Linux, kaya po yon, ginagawa ni NCC, ginagawa ni ASTI. So, doable po siya. Yung supports,
Di ba po may proposal ang Bureau of Immigration to Bureau of Immigration po. Dumaan sa akin yan eh.
Okay.
So, well, hindi naman namin ina-address yung connectivity to the ports eh. Oo. As I said, yung focus namin is just yung for the network at least, yung Metro Manila. So yung connecting Bureau of Immigration, the head office. And I think NAIA, I guess yung MICP, yung mga ganon. In Metro Manila lang. If it's outside Metro Manila, then I think you have your own proposals to address yung requirements nyo. I guess then there will be some complementation there. Kasi as I mentioned, some government agencies actually have their own established network going to their regional offices, even down to their provincial offices. It would be useful immediately dahil when we connect the head office, at least you already have that existing to your regional and provincial offices. Yeah.
May pahabol pa po. Sige ma'am.
Captain Salon from the Philippine Navy. This is a request. A while ago, na-mention po na be some requirements, if in case you want a list of requirements for all the government agencies so that 13 budget namin. Thank you.
Anyway, we're nearly at the end, so before we go, we will be having meeting. Yeah.
Wala akong nagtatanong ano. So tatanungin ko na at sasagutin ko kung may provide na connection sa internet. Kasi yun, ngayon you're spending your budget to connect to the internet, hindi po ba? So once the network is magagamit nyo ba yon to connect to the tama po ba? Oo. Ha? Yes, oo. Magagamit nyo yung kailangan lang namin pag-isipan yung paano i-charge. Ito po, outside of the iGov project, pinag-uusapan namin, well, DBM opened up the possibility of or improving yung budgeting process for ICT with the 2014 budget, which will be, so yun, funds for internet agencies. We want to put in place, we have to discuss with DBM and kung paano yung kasi we will have to enter into agreements with ask DBM to fund it, the facility or the infrastructure. Hindi yung naabuso natin. We don't feel the cost. So, yun po. We have time at least to figure out how to charge yung commodity internet. But it is our plan and it really makes sense, kasi if you look at it, at least yung Metro Manila, we're providing redundancy going to the net. In fact, our plan is to integrate it with the network that we now operate. We've been operating since 2000. Yun ang sabi ni Director Dagdag, they used that for video streaming the impeachment trial. At a certain point, I think we hit 20,000 ba? 20,000 simultaneous na on the streaming. So we can easily upgrade yung capacity nung. We didn't show it in our presentation, but we already have that kasi that is the infrastructure domestically. At least for Metro Manila, we hope that this can be. This is a way to address that. Also, kasi we want to avoid yung ganito po if you insist on as an ISP kasi we have a connection to the commodity internet and yet you insist on connecting to a second ISP, experience shows na it's really, unless you have the people with the expertise to manage it properly, it's difficult. You need to understand how to do it properly, including doing BGP routing. BGP routing, that's fine. But if you're not, and it will result to splitting your network inside, meaning one building, it's connected. Some computers are in one network, some are in another network. So better if you can't do it properly, you just stick with one and just ensure that you have a naman.
Actually, we were thinking about that already because you know that it is about cost, and COA is always concerned about cost. I think it makes sense. It makes more sense now that the agency should be informed of the implementation timelines because, we enter in agreement with our ISPs and there is contract at least for 1 year. And if the implementation agencies will continue to ISPs. So we would suggest that there should be really a timeline, and they should be so that they can also properly schedule or yung entering into agreements with their IS. If it will be implemented already here, then they will consider not renewing anymore or bidding anymore for the internet services.
Pag sinabi naming deliver, tas you don't have an ISP. Oo. Sabi sa akin, manawagan daw sa MMDA at LRTA. Since may dependent, put in the fiber, po yung dependency namin ngayon. We can bid out private groups on some sort of a PPP.